Faithful one, let me tell you who you really are. Not the version that has been worn down by waiting. Not the version that has started to wonder in the private hours when no one else can hear the questioning whether the things you have been believing for are actually coming, or whether hope itself was the thing you were wrong about. Not the version that goes through the motions of faith, because giving up feels too final, and pressing forward feels too heavy. And so you occupy that uncomfortable middle space where you are not quite fully trusting and not quite fully releasing. And the tension of holding both positions simultaneously is its own kind of exhaustion. Not that version. I want to speak to the real you, the one I formed before any of the difficulty arrived, the one I designed with precision and purpose, and a specific intentionality that considered every detail of who you would be and what you would face and what you would need and how my love would meet you at every point along the way. The one I have been watching with unbroken and undistracted attention through every single season of your life, including the seasons you most wish you could forget. That is the you I am addressing right now. That is the you I have always been speaking to. That is the you I see when I look in your direction, regardless of what you see when you look in the mirror on your most difficult days. And here is what I need that version of you to hear. Something is arriving, not approaching from some distant horizon where you can see it coming, but cannot yet gauge how long before it reaches you. Not still being assembled somewhere in the background while you wait in the foreground. Not standing by while conditions are being evaluated to determine whether you qualify. Arriving, moving toward you right now with the intentionality and the unstoppable momentum of a love that has never been deterred by obstacles, never been confused about its destination, never lost track of the specific address where it was sent. The love you have been wondering whether you deserve. The provision that covers the gap between what you have and what you need in ways that your own hands cannot quite reach. The blessing that has your name written on it in a handwriting that was chosen before you were born. Arriving at your home, arriving in your relationships, arriving in the particular corners of your life where the need has been most acute and the waiting has been most prolonged. It is in motion. It is real. And I do not say any of that to fill the space between where you are and where the fulfillment is with beautiful words that feel good to hear, but dissolve when they meet the reality of the actual situation. I say it because I want you standing in the right posture when what is coming actually arrives. I want your hands open. I want your heart less guarded than fear has been teaching it to be. I want your expectation alive rather than braced for the next disappointment, because the way you receive something determines how fully you can take it in, and what is coming deserves to be received at the full depth of you rather than deflected at the surface. Before I go forward into what is arriving, I need to spend real and unhurried time with where you have been, because the place you are walking out of is real. The cost of it has been real. And I will not pretend otherwise. I will not skip past the difficulty as though it were a minor inconvenience that barely registered on the scale of what you have been through. It registered. It cost you something. There are specific things the long, difficult season took from you that I want to name, because naming them is part of the restoration. It cost you confidence. Not all of it, not the last reserves of it, but enough that on certain days the confident version of yourself felt like someone you used to know rather than someone you currently were. It cost you the ease and the lightness that belong to a person who is not carrying something heavy through every ordinary hour of the day. It cost you the particular quality of sleep that comes naturally when there is nothing pressing against your chest during the quiet hours, and that absence of good rest accumulated in your body in ways you could feel even if you could not always name. It cost you the ability to be fully present in the good moments, because something in the background of your awareness was always quietly calculating and monitoring and bracing. I know what the long stretches of unmet expectation and unanswered longing do to a person. I know how gradual and subtle the erosion is, how it does not announce itself as a dramatic collapse, but accumulates patiently, question by question, delayed answer by delayed answer, small disappointment layered on small disappointment, until one ordinary morning you realize you are carrying something heavier than you remember picking up. And the moment when the weight increased is impossible to locate, because the adding was so incremental that you did not notice any single addition. I know that. I have been watching you carry it. I have not been uninvolved or unmoved or looking away. I have been present in the carrying right alongside you, even when my presence was not perceptible to you through the fog of the difficulty. There is no version of your story in which I was the absent, indifferent spectator watching you struggle from a safe distance. I have been with you in it. I have been working through it in ways that were not yet visible to you from your position inside the experience. And the most important thing I was doing during that season is not something that was happening in your circumstances. The most important work was happening in you, in the depth of you, in the substance of your character, in the architecture of your inner life, in the capacity of your heart to hold more than it could hold before the difficulty began. The painful seasons do work, but the comfortable seasons cannot do. And I was doing the most significant and most valuable work of your entire formation during the chapter that felt, from the inside, like a simple season of loss and delay and unanswered prayer. Let me tell you what I have seen while watching you move through this difficult passage. I have seen you make choices for faithfulness on days when faithfulness offered no visible return, and the only reward for choosing it was the integrity of having chosen it. I have seen you get up and keep going on mornings when the case for getting up was not obvious, and nothing in your circumstances was providing encouragement for the effort. I have seen you absorb more than your share of the weight that surrounded you, keeping it from falling on the people you love at the cost of carrying it yourself, in the private places where only I could see what you were holding. I have seen you hold your tongue when speaking your real feelings out loud would have been easy and honest and entirely defensible. I have seen you kneel in prayer when the emotional reality underneath your words was closer to doubt than to faith. And I want you to understand something about those prayers that I suspect you have misunderstood. Those prayers did not fail to count. The fact that you prayed while doubting does not make the prayer a lesser prayer. It makes it a more costly one. It means that the act of coming to me required something from you, rather than feeling natural and easy, and you came anyway. That kind of coming is among the most significant things I witness in a human heart. It is the kind of faithfulness that does not depend on feeling faithful, that keeps its orientation toward me, even when every feeling is pointing in a different direction. I count those prayers. I honor those prayers. I receive those prayers. Not one of them dissolved into nothing. Not one of them missed the mark of my attention. Every one of them landed exactly where it needed to land, and accomplished in the invisible world exactly what it needed to accomplish. Now, let me open the door to what is arriving, and I want to move through each dimension of what blessing at your home means, because I want this to be as concrete and specific as I can make it, rather than resting in the kind of generality that is easy to receive in one moment and easy to forget in the next. When I say that love is arriving at your home, I am speaking about something that is both larger and more specific than the word usually carries when people use it in passing. I am speaking about love of a particular quality, not the version that is really just approval, the warm feeling that is present when you are performing well and absent when you are not at your best. not the conditional warmth that operates as a kind of exchange, available in proportion to what is being received from you in the transaction. Not the love that is genuinely felt, but fragile, dependent on circumstances remaining favorable, disappearing when the circumstances change. I am speaking about the kind of love that sees everything about a person, including the parts that are not easy to see and the parts the person would not choose to have seen, and chooses that person fully, without reservation, with a commitment that does not waver when the person is less than their best. The kind that fills rooms, the kind that makes people feel safe in ways they cannot fully explain, the kind that restores what has been broken between people who genuinely care for each other and have been separated by misunderstanding or hurt, or the simple accumulation of distance that happens when two people are each carrying something heavy, and neither has the surplus energy to close the gap. I have been cultivating in you through this difficult season a capacity to both give and receive this kind of love that is genuinely larger now than it was when the difficulty began. The passage was enlarging. You can hold more. You can give more. You can receive more without the reflexive deflection that comes from having been hurt and having your nervous system learn to preempt further hurt by not letting love fully in. What is coming will find more room in you than what came before found. And let me be specific about what love arriving looks like when it actually reaches your daily life, because I do not want this to remain at the level of beautiful abstraction. Love arriving looks like something shifting in the atmosphere between the people in your household. It looks like conversations that have been stuck for a long time, beginning slowly and tentatively at first, and then with increasing ease to move again. It looks like the particular distance that settles between people who love each other but have stopped being able to close the gap beginning to narrow. Not through a single heroic conversation, but through the accumulation of small moments of unexpected warmth, of choosing kindness when irritation was available, of remembering why the other person matters when what they just said makes mattering feel less obvious. It looks like forgiveness finding the runway it needs to actually land, rather than circling indefinitely in the air above the situation that required it. It looks like laughter returning to rooms that have been too serious for too long. It looks like people who are together actually being together, present, available, choosing each other's company rather than enduring it. That is what love arriving looks like. It is not usually announced with trumpets. It is most often felt in the small shifts, the slightly easier conversation, the unexpected moment of warmth, the look that communicates something that does not need words. Those small shifts are my signature on your daily life. When you feel them, recognize them for what they are. I want to speak at length now about provision, because I know this is a dimension of the blessing arriving that is not abstract for you. The need is specific. The gaps are real. The arithmetic that has been troubling you has numbers with actual values in it, and the distance between those numbers has been a source of genuine distress. I know the particular shape of the financial pressure you have been living with. I know how it arrives in the night hours when the numbers run themselves without your permission. I know the specific calculations that your mind returns to most persistently. The obligations that are not met, the resources that are insufficient, the gap between the two that stubbornly refuses to close in the way it needs to. I know that this kind of sustained financial pressure does something to a person beyond the practical problem it presents. It affects the way you see yourself. It affects the stories you tell about your situation and about your future, and about whether the future will be fundamentally different from the present, or whether this is simply the condition of your life indefinitely. It affects the quality of your rest and the freedom of your thinking and your capacity to be fully present in moments that deserve your full presence. I am not unmoved by any of that. Every aspect of what the financial pressure has cost you beyond the purely practical is known to me, and it is part of what I am addressing in the provision that is arriving. The provision I am releasing is not the thin, barely sufficient kind that meets the immediate need and leaves you immediately back at the edge of the same shortage with nothing to spare. That is not the character of what I have prepared for you. I am releasing provision with margin in it, provision that creates genuine breathing room between where you are and the line of pressure. Provision that gives you the experience of having enough, which is different from merely avoiding the experience of not having enough. Provision that puts you in a position to give generously to others, rather than calculating whether you can afford to give anything at all, because the life I designed for you was designed to include the dignity of generosity, and I will not leave you permanently in a posture where generosity is out of reach. I am a God who provides from resources that are not subject to the same scarcity that governs human supply. My storehouse is full. My ability to release into your specific situation exactly what your specific situation requires is not limited by the conditions that limit human giving. And I am releasing from that storehouse into your life now. I also want to tell you how the provision will arrive, because I think the path matters as much as the destination in this case. The provision I am releasing will come through channels that you did not open and from directions you were not watching. This is deliberate. When provision comes from where you expected it and in the form you predicted, there is always the possibility of attributing it entirely to your own effort and strategy. When it arrives from an unexpected direction, from a connection you did not engineer, through a door that opened without your pushing on it, in a form that meets a need you had only voiced privately, the source is unmistakable. I want to be unmistakable in this. I want what is coming to carry the signature of my provision rather than being absorbed into the category of natural cause and effect. So watch for surprises. Watch for opportunities that present themselves from directions you were not facing. Watch for people coming into your life whose arrival coincides precisely with something you needed that you had not told anyone but me. Watch for the phone call, the conversation, the unexpected word from someone you had not thought of, the connection that should not have happened but did. Those are the mechanisms of my provision. Those are my fingerprints on the visible world. Now I want to speak about the broader category of blessing arriving at your home. The whole life infusion of divine favor that I am releasing over every dimension of the life you inhabit. Blessing in my language is not a single transaction that delivers a specified benefit and concludes. It is more like a change in the conditions of your life, a shift in the atmosphere in which all of the specific circumstances of your daily existence operate. When blessing is present, the same effort yields more than it would yield without it. The same relationships become more generative and more nourishing than they were without it. The same work carries more satisfaction. The same ordinary days contain more beauty and more meaning because the layer of pressure and preoccupation that was partially blocking your ability to perceive what was already present has been lifted. Blessing is the multiplication of what you have, not always through numerical increase, but always through a qualitative enhancement of the whole experience of your life. The blessed life is not necessarily the life with the most resources or the fewest problems. It is the life in which the presence of God is functioning as an amplifier of what is good and as a buffer against what would otherwise be overwhelming. I am releasing that kind of blessing over your home, not just over your finances, though I have spoken specifically about that, not just over your relationships, though I have spoken specifically about that too, over the whole of it, over the quality of the time you spend in your life, over the quality of the rest you get, over the quality of your awareness of what is good about the life you inhabit, which is often more than the difficulty has allowed you to see, over the quality of your connection with me, the particular ease or difficulty of feeling that I am present, and that my presence is accessible to you, without requiring extraordinary effort on your part to locate. I am making my presence more perceptible to you in this season. The sense of divine proximity, the specific feeling of being accompanied and held and attended to that some seasons carry more fully than others, is going to be stronger in the days ahead than it has been in the recent season. You are going to feel less alone. That is a specific promise, and I mean it specifically. Let me spend significant time now on what I see in you, because this is something I want to give back to you in a form you can keep. The long, difficult season has done something to the way you understand yourself. And while I have already addressed the most destructive of those distortions, I want to go further and tell you what I see when I look at you fully. You have been walking through something hard with more grace than you are aware of carrying. The way you have moved through this season, the choices you made, the posture you maintained, the love you kept giving when you were not receiving at the level you deserved, the faith you kept coming back to even when it felt unreliable. All of that reveals a character that was shaped before this season began and made more visible by what this season required. The character I see in you is not ordinary. It is not the character that forms when a life is consistently comfortable and never requires its holder to dig below the surface level of their resources. It is the character that forms when a person is required, repeatedly and over time, to give what they are not certain they have and discover, in the giving, that the reserves were deeper than they knew. I want to tell you specifically what I see when I look at you, because I think you need to hear the specifics and not just the general affirmation. I see a tenderness that is genuine and costly and not performed. The kind that costs something to maintain when the circumstances of life have been pressing in a direction that would justify hardness. You have not become hard. The circumstances invited hardness, and you did not accept the invitation. And that choice required more strength than hardening would have required. I see a capacity for loyalty that is not conditional on being matched. You have remained faithful to commitments that were not being equally honored. And you have done that not because you did not notice the imbalance, but because something in you is committed to showing up fully, regardless of whether the showing up is being reciprocated at the level it deserves. I see a generosity that does not require financial abundance to operate. You have given from shortage. You have offered from empty. You have found ways to be for other people during seasons when you yourself were in the most need of someone being for you. That generosity is a reflection of something in you that reaches past the level of human nature into the character of the divine. It is a reflection of me in you. I want you to see it. I want you to recognize it as yours. I also see something in you that you may not have named as a quality, but that I want to name clearly. Endurance. Not passive endurance. Not simply surviving difficulty by being too stubborn to give up. Active endurance. The kind that keeps making choices for what is right, and what is loving, and what is faithful, even while the difficulty is ongoing. The kind that does not wait for the season to change before resuming the posture of goodness, but maintains that posture inside the hard season, at cost, without the support of favorable circumstances to make it easier. Active endurance of that quality is rare. It is genuinely rare. And it is one of the qualities I most honor in my children, because it is the quality that most closely reflects my own character. The faithful, steady, active love that does not waver when conditions are unfavorable, that keeps choosing the beloved even when the choosing is costly, that makes its commitment unmistakably clear by maintaining it precisely when maintenance is hardest. That is what I see in you. Now I want to speak about the season ahead, with the specific kind of detail that allows you to participate in it with your full capacity. The season you are entering is a season of receiving, not passive receiving, not sitting back and waiting for things to fall into your lap, without your participation, but the active receiving of someone who knows that what is coming is real and positions themselves to take hold of it fully. Like the farmer who knows the harvest is coming and shows up in the field with the tools for harvesting rather than the tools for plowing. The posture shifts when the season shifts. What the harvest requires is different from what the planting required. What is required of you now is different from what was required of you in the difficulty. You were required, in the difficulty, to maintain, to hold on, to keep going without evidence, to trust without seeing. Those were the demands of the preparing season, and you met them. What is required of you now is more like opening, receiving, saying yes to what is being offered without immediately calculating whether you deserve it, taking hold of what is being given without waiting for the other shoe to drop, allowing what has arrived to actually settle into your life and do the full work of transformation that it was sent to do. I want to give you specific instructions for how to enter this season of abundance in a way that allows the blessing to do the full work it was sent to do. First, notice. Practice the discipline of noticing. Because abundance often arrives incrementally rather than in a single dramatic delivery, and the person who has not been trained to catch small evidences of grace will miss the bulk of what is being sent because it is arriving in a form they were not watching for. Practice noticing when a situation that was previously resistant begins to yield. Practice noticing when a conversation goes in a direction that surprises you with its warmth or its movement. Practice noticing when a provision arrives from an unexpected direction. Practice noticing when the quality of your inner life shifts, when the heaviness is lighter, when the peace is more accessible, when the sense of being held is more perceptible. These small notices accumulate. They build in you a perception that is calibrated for abundance rather than calibrated for disappointment. And what your perception is calibrated for is what you actually experience even when the same amount of blessing is objectively present. Shift your calibration toward noticing the gift. You will find that there is far more gift than you have been tracking. Second, receive without minimizing. This is important for you specifically because the habit of minimizing what is good has been a protective mechanism that the difficult season reinforced. When good things arrived in the hard season, minimizing them was a way of protecting yourself from the disappointment of having them taken away or having proven to be less than they appeared. I understand why that habit formed, but it is not serving you now, and I am asking you to practice something different. When something good arrives, let it be as good as it is. Do not immediately find the qualifying factor that reduces it to something manageable. Do not immediately identify the reason it probably will not last. Let it in. Let it be real. Let the relief or the joy or the warmth or the provision or the love actually reach the depth of you rather than being caught at the surface and cataloged from a safe distance. The gift only does its full work when it is received fully. Receive fully. Third, give freely. The abundance I am releasing over your life is not intended to stop at you. It is intended to flow through you. I design my provision with the principle of flow rather than accumulation. Not because accumulation is wrong, but because the full experience of abundance includes the experience of being in a position to give generously to others. And generosity has its own reward in the deep satisfaction of a heart that knows it is participating in the character of the God who gave everything. As the provision increases and the margin widens and the blessing fills in the spaces that were previously empty, look for ways to pass on what has come to you. Look for people around you who are in the position you were in during the difficult season. Look for opportunities to be the unexpected provision for someone else's specific need. The arrival from the direction they were not watching, the fingerprint of my care showing up in their life through yours. That flow keeps the blessing moving, and keeps the abundance from becoming a stagnant pool, and keeps your heart in the posture of gratitude that is the natural habitat of the person who has received abundantly, and continues to give abundantly, and continues to receive abundantly in a cycle that does not have an end. Fourth, stay close to me. This is not a warning, but an invitation. The season of abundance has its own specific challenges that the season of difficulty did not present. The difficult season drove you toward me because there was nowhere else to go. The abundant season can quietly create a drift. Not because you become unfaithful or ungrateful in any dramatic way, but because the urgency that the difficulty provided is no longer present. And without urgency, it is easy to let the habit of nearness become less consistent. And as the nearness decreases, the perception of my presence fades, and the source of the abundance begins to feel less clear, and the gratitude loses its address, and you find yourself inhabiting the blessing without, inhabiting the relationship that is the source of the blessing. I am not describing this as a certain future for you. I am describing it as a pattern I have observed in people I love in every season of their lives. And I am giving you the warning early enough to choose differently. Stay near to me in the abundant season, not because I require it as the price of the abundance, because nearness to me is itself the greatest of all the blessings, and because the person who stays near to me in the abundant season receives dimensions of my character and my love that are simply not available at a distance. The prosperity of your outer life will reach its full meaning when it is inhabited alongside the prosperity of your inner life with me. Do not trade the relationship for the gifts that the relationship produces. The gifts are wonderful, and they are real, and they are yours. But the giver is better than the gifts. I want to close this time by speaking directly to every specific fear and doubt and discouragement that has made its home in your heart during this season. I want to address them one by one, not to shame you for having them, but to relieve you of them, because they have served whatever purpose they were going to serve, and you do not need to carry them any further. The fear that the promise is not really for you, that somewhere between the universal offer and your specific life, your name fell off the list, or your case was reviewed and found insufficient. That fear is a lie. I chose you specifically. I made the promise specifically to you. The list does not change. Your name does not fall off. The specific, personal, individually addressed love of God for you is not subject to the kind of revocation that the fear describes. The fear that the waiting has been too long and the window has closed, that the season in which your specific blessing was available has passed while you were getting ready for it, or waiting for it, or failing to receive it correctly. That fear is a lie. I do not work with closing windows and missed opportunities in the way that the fear describes. I am the God of the morning. Every morning is a new beginning, a fresh release, a current flow of grace that is not diminished by what was or was not received yesterday. There is no closed window. There is only this moment and the fullness of what I am releasing in it. The fear that what is coming will be taken away as quickly as it arrives, that the pattern of your life is one in which good things appear briefly and then depart, and therefore any good thing that arrives now is already on its way out. That fear is a lie. What I give with intention for it to remain. I do not give gifts to demonstrate and withdraw. The blessing arriving is not a temporary visitor. It is the beginning of a sustained season of favor that will build rather than dissipate. The fear that you have somehow damaged your own destiny by the choices that were wrong, and the moments when you failed, and the times when your response to difficulty was less than faithful. That fear is a lie. The story I am writing for you has enough grace in it to absorb every failure and still arrive at the destination I intended. My plan for your life was not built around your perfect execution of it. It was built around my perfect faithfulness to it. And my faithfulness does not waver when your performance does. The destination I have prepared for you is not canceled by the detours. It is reached through them. You are seen. You are known. You are loved with a love that has no beginning and no end, that does not increase when you are faithful and does not decrease when you fail, that does not depend on your performance or your beliefs or your emotional state or your willingness to receive it. It simply is. It is the most permanent thing in existence. It is the ground that everything else stands on. And it is yours. It has always been yours. The blessing is coming. The provision is arriving. The love is already here. Everything that was promised stands. The best of the story is ahead of you. And the person walking into that best part is not a diminished version of who you were meant to be. It is the version of you that the difficulty produced. Deeper, more real, more capable of receiving and giving the full weight of what is coming than you would have been without the hard chapter. The hard chapter prepared you for the good one, and the good one is beginning. I want to talk to you about something very specific that I have been doing while you were going through this season that you may not have had language for. I have been doing the work of preparation, not preparation in the abstract sense, not a vague process of spiritual development that happens without any particular purpose in mind. Preparation for something specific. Preparation calibrated to a specific chapter that is coming in your life. A chapter that has a particular shape and particular requirements and particular gifts that need to be in a particular condition when it arrives. And the preparation has been exactly matched to what the chapter requires. The chapter that is coming is not one that the earlier version of you could have inhabited fully. Not because the earlier version of you was inferior, but because the earlier version of you had not yet been given what this chapter requires. This chapter requires depth. You have depth now that you did not have before. The specific kind of depth that comes from having been through something genuinely difficult and having learned, not theoretically but experientially, what holds and what does not hold when everything else falls away. This chapter requires compassion with substance in it. You have that compassion now. You know what it is to need something and not receive it in the timing you needed it. You know what it is to pray with everything you have and feel uncertain whether anything is listening. That knowledge gives you a quality of care for others in the same place that no instruction or observation could have produced. It comes only from the inside of the experience, and now you have that inside knowledge to give. This chapter requires wisdom about what actually matters when things are stripped down to essentials. You have that wisdom now. The difficulty had a clarifying effect. It showed you what held and what did not hold, what was load-bearing in your life and what was decoration, what you would choose again and what you would release if the pressure required it. That clarity is a form of wisdom that will serve you and the people around you in the chapter ahead. This is why I prepared you this way. Not because the preparation was the plan. The plan is the chapter you are about to inhabit. The preparation was the most direct path to arriving at that chapter in the condition required to live it fully. The long season of difficulty was not the story. It was the infrastructure of the story. The story is what you are walking into now. I want to speak specifically about what I mean when I say that abundance is arriving at your home, because I think the word abundance can become so familiar in the language of faith that it loses its specific weight. Let me restore the specific weight of it. Abundance means there is more than enough, more than you need for yourself, more than what covers the essentials, more than what barely gets you through the week. Abundance means the storehouse is full enough that you can give generously without fear that the giving will leave you without enough. It means the margin in your life, the space between what you have and what you need, is wide enough that the unexpected thing can arrive without causing a crisis, because there is room for the unexpected within the abundance. Abundance means your family eats well and the needs are met. And beyond the needs, there is room for the things that make life not just survivable, but genuinely good. The cup that runs over, not dripping over the edge barely, but flowing, overflowing, spilling in a way that is unmistakably more than sufficient. That is what is arriving in your home. That is the nature of what is being released over your specific circumstances. I am not sending a thin grace that barely covers what is required. I am sending the abundant kind, the overflow kind, the kind that makes the recipient say with genuine astonishment that they never expected this much, that the return was far more than the investment, that the provision exceeded what they had asked for and addressed needs they had not even thought to name. Let me also speak about abundance in the non-financial dimensions of life, because provision has more faces than the financial one, and I want to name them all. There is an abundance of peace, the specific inner quietness that allows you to move through even difficult moments without being internally overwhelmed by them. The peace that Paul described as passing understanding, meaning that when you try to explain to someone why you have this quality of calm in the middle of a situation that should be producing panic, you cannot fully explain it because it is not generated by your circumstances or your capacities, but by a presence that is occupying the same space you are occupying and is larger than everything that is pressing in. That peace is part of what is arriving. You are going to notice in the days ahead that you have more of it than the circumstances justify. That is not an accident. That is me releasing into your inner life a quality of peace that your situation cannot produce on its own, but that my presence produces as a natural consequence of my being near to you. There is an abundance of clarity, the specific capacity to see clearly what matters and what does not, to make decisions from a grounded place rather than from the anxious, pressured place that the difficult season imposed, to distinguish between what is genuinely important and what only feels urgent because the difficulty amplified everything. In the season of difficulty, the noise-to-signal ratio gets high. Everything clamors for attention, and it becomes difficult to sort what genuinely needs your energy from what is simply loud. The abundance I am releasing includes a quieting of the noise and an amplifying of the signal, so that what is actually important becomes perceptible, and what is simply urgent but not important loses the grip it has been having on your attention. There is an abundance of energy, the specific vitality that is the natural state of a person who is not spending the majority of their reserves on managing sustained stress. When pressure lifts, energy returns. You are going to feel this in your body, a quality of wakefulness, of readiness for the day, of genuine engagement with what is in front of you that has been diminished during the hard season. You are going to wake up in the mornings ahead with something different in your chest, a lighter kind of readiness, an enthusiasm that is not performed but genuinely felt, the specific aliveness of a person who has been given a reason to be alive and knows it, and is stepping into a chapter that matches their capacity. There is an abundance of love in your relationships, the specific warmth and generosity and willingness to give the benefit of the doubt and capacity to forgive quickly and desire to be present that characterizes relationships that are flowing in the grace of God, rather than running on the reserves of human effort alone. The relationships in your life are about to become more nourishing. The ones that have been marked by friction are going to have more grace available in the interactions. The ones that have been shallow are going to be given the conditions to deepen. The ones that have been distant are going to be given the opportunity to close that distance. and new relationships are coming. Specific people whose arrival in your life at this specific moment is not coincidence but design, who carry something you need and who need something you carry, whose presence in your life will be one of the evidences that I know exactly what I am doing in the specific geography of your specific life. I want to spend time now on the question of worthiness, because I know it has been a question that the difficult season has amplified, and I want to address it fully. The question of whether you are worthy of the blessing that is arriving is not a question I am asking you to resolve through argument or through generating sufficient evidence of your worthiness. The question has already been answered. It was answered before you were born, before you had done anything that could qualify or disqualify you, before your record was long enough to examine and evaluate. The answer was yes. Before there was a question, the answer was yes. I decided before the foundation of the world that you were mine, that you were loved, that the full resource of my provision and care would be available to you, that the destiny I had designed for you would be yours. And I have not changed my mind since. The things that have gone wrong in your life have not caused me to revise the answer. The moments of failure and weakness have not caused me to reconsider. The seasons of doubt have not changed the terms of the covenant I made with you before you could agree to it. The answer is yes. It was yes then, and it is yes now, and it will be yes at the end of all things, when everything else has passed away, and only the love remains. You do not earn this blessing. I want to be clear about that, because the pattern of earning is so deeply embedded in human experience that it is difficult not to apply it to the relationship with me. Everything in your human life has been conditional on what you do: the approval, the success, the love, the opportunity. You learned early that receiving requires performing, that belonging requires earning, that good things come to people who deserve them, and disaster comes to people who did not do enough to prevent it. That pattern is so deeply embedded that even when you believe theoretically that my grace is free, some part of you is still calculating your worthiness, still looking for the specific sins that disqualify you, still wondering whether the ledger is positive enough to justify the blessing. I want to address that part of you directly and say, stop calculating. You cannot earn this. It was never designed to be earned. I gave it because I give, because giving is the expression of my nature, because the love I have for you produces in me a desire to bless you that does not wait for a performance sufficient to justify the desire. You are already sufficient, not because of what you have done, but because of what I decided before you did anything. Rest in that. Receive in that. Do not calculate your way into whether you deserve what is coming. Open your hands. It is arriving. Now, let me speak a final word about your home specifically, about the physical space where your daily life happens, where the people you love move through their days, where the routines and the rhythms and the ordinary rituals of existence are enacted. I want to speak over that space. I am coming into that space, not as a visitor who arrives and leaves, as a presence who settles in and remains. The quality of what my presence brings, the peace, the warmth, the specific sense of sacred that marks a space where the holy dwells, is going to become a characteristic of your home, rather than an occasional experience within it. People who enter your home are going to feel something that they may or may not be able to name, but that will affect them. There will be a quality of safety in the space, a particular ease, a sense that it is possible to relax there in a way that is not possible everywhere. That quality is not a function of decoration or architecture. It is a function of presence. And I am taking up residence in the atmosphere of your home as a permanent tenant rather than a weekend guest. The people in your home are going to be affected by this. The children, if there are children, their sense of security, their quality of sleep, the specific ease with which they inhabit their days. The adults, the specific quality of their rest, the ease of their relationships with one another, the way they move through difficulty together rather than alone, the rhythm of the household as a whole, the particular character of what the space feels like when everyone is home together, when the ordinary evening happens, when the unremarkable morning unfolds. All of it is going to carry more of the quality that I carry: peace, warmth, the specific sense that the people in this space are held and cared for by something larger than what they can see. That is what my presence does to a home, and I am bringing it to yours. There is one more thing I want to give you before I close. I want to give you a specific instruction that is simple, but has the power to change everything about how you experience the season that is beginning. Every day, as soon as you become aware that you are awake, before anything else has your attention, speak directly to me. Not a long prayer, not a performance. 3 sentences or even 1 sentence from the actual state of your actual heart. What you are grateful for in this moment. What you are trusting me for today. What you need from me that you cannot provide for yourself. Those 3 things, spoken honestly and briefly, will calibrate the whole of the day that follows. They will remind you, at the deepest level of your identity, you are the beloved child of a Father who is listening, who is present, who has resources you do not have, who is actively and intentionally for you in every moment of every day. Beginning the day from that identity shapes everything that follows in it. It changes the lens through which you see what happens. It changes the quality of your response to difficulty. It changes the depth of your ability to receive the good things that arrive. Begin each day by speaking to me. That practice, maintained over the days and weeks and months of the season ahead, will be one of the most significant things you do. Not because I require it as a ritual or because the blessing is contingent on it, because it keeps you calibrated to what is true when the noise of the day would otherwise recalibrate you toward what is merely urgent. I love you, always loved you. My love does not fluctuate with your performance or your feeling or the condition of your circumstances. It is constant, permanent, foundational. It was present before you were born, and it will be present beyond the last moment of time. It is the most permanent thing about your existence, and it is actively, intentionally, presently working on your behalf right now. Every moment of every day, arranging, repairing, releasing, providing, holding, healing, restoring, and celebrating the specific you that it has always, from before the beginning, been fixed upon with an attention that nothing can interrupt. Now let me speak to the specific dimension of home that has to do with provision for those you love. This matters deeply to you. The ability to care for the people in your home, to provide for their needs, to give them what they require, not just to survive, but to genuinely flourish. And I know that when this provision has felt insufficient, the weight of it has been one of the heaviest things you have carried, because it touches something at the core of your identity as a person who loves and is responsible for others. Hear this clearly. My provision flows toward those who love and care for others. My resources are released specifically into lives where the motivation is love rather than accumulation. You love the people in your home. You have been trying to care for them. You have been stretching what you have to cover what they need. My eyes are on that love. My resources are being released in response to that love. Not because you have loved perfectly. No one loves perfectly. But because love is present and real, and it is the motivation behind the efforts you have been making. And love is what my provision aligns itself with. Watch for what arrives in your home in the coming season to arrive with a character that matches the love that has been operating in it. Provision shaped exactly by what was needed. Care that addresses what was lacking. Sufficiency that arrives in the specific forms that were most required. Let me say something about the children, or the young ones in your life, the people who are younger in faith and in experience, and who look to you in ways you may not always be fully aware of. You are shaping people. You are forming something in them by the way you move through difficulty, by the posture you maintain when things are hard, by the things you say about who God is when the circumstances of your life could justify saying something very different. Those young ones are watching, and what they see in you during this season, the faithfulness that held even when it was costly, the love that kept going even when it was not fully returned, the decision to keep coming to God even when the answers were slow, all of that is becoming part of what they know to be possible. You are giving them a model of resilient, non-performative faith that is one of the most valuable things any person can pass to another. You may not have thought about your faithfulness in this season as something you were giving, but you have been giving it, and the giving is seen, and it is producing something in the people around you that will outlast this season and follow them into chapters you will not be present for. That is a legacy. Be encouraged by it. Let me address the issue of identity one more time, from a slightly different angle, because I want to make sure this is settled in you before we close. Who you are is not determined by what you have been through. Who you are is determined by who I say you are, and what I say is this: you are my child. That is not a metaphor or a helpful figure of speech. It is a description of what you actually are in relation to me. A child of mine, which means everything that belongs to a child in my family belongs to you. Not because you performed well enough to earn membership in the family, but because I chose to adopt you, to bring you in, to make you an heir. And adoption in my family is irrevocable. Once a child of mine, always a child of mine. Once an heir, always an heir. The inheritance does not become unavailable when the child fails. It remains prepared and waiting for the child to step into it. Your failure to access all of it in every season does not diminish what is prepared. It simply means it is waiting for the season in which you are ready to receive it fully. And that season is here. Being a child of mine means you have access to everything that belongs to your Father. Peace. Because your Father is the God of all peace, and what He carries, His children can access. Wisdom. Because your Father is the source of all wisdom, and His children are invited to ask and receive without limit and without rebuke. Provision. Because your Father owns everything that exists and has access to resources that are not constrained by any of the conditions that constrain human supply. Healing. Because your Father is the one who formed your body and knows its precise mechanics and has the capacity to restore whatever has been compromised. Love. Because your Father is love in the essential sense, not love as one of His qualities, but love as what He is at the deepest level of His being. And His children are saturated in that love from the beginning to the end of their existence. All of this is yours, not because you are extraordinary, but because your Father is, and you are His. Let me spend a moment speaking about faith, because I think there may be a misunderstanding about what I require from you in this season that I want to clear up. Faith in this season does not look like certainty. It does not look like the confident, unshaken trust that never questioned and never doubted and never wondered if the answer was coming. That kind of faith, while beautiful when it exists, is not what I am asking of you. What I am asking of you in this season is something simpler and more accessible. The choice to remain oriented toward me, to keep your face pointed in my direction even when you cannot feel me, to keep your hands open even when they have been empty for a long time, and the openness is getting harder to maintain, to keep coming back to me even when the coming back feels more like habit than like vibrant expectation. That consistency, that stubborn, unglamorous, sometimes weary consistency of direction, is what I mean by faith in the difficult season. And you have had it. You have been doing it. And it has been real. And it has been counted. And it has been enough. Faith in the coming season is going to feel different. When what you have been believing for begins to arrive, when the evidence starts to accumulate, when the small shifts begin to become noticeable, when the provision comes from the unexpected direction and the relationship begins to mend and the atmosphere of your home begins to lighten. Faith in that season is going to have more to work with. It will still be faith, because faith always contains an element of trust in what is not yet fully visible. But it will be the faith of someone who is beginning to see, who is accumulating evidence, who can look back at what has arrived and forward at what is still coming and say, with increasing confidence, yes, this is real. Yes, my Father is faithful. Yes, what was promised is being delivered. That growing confidence is not a sign of lesser faith. It is a sign of faith that is being confirmed. And confirmation is something I intend for you to experience in this season as I deliver what I promised. Walk forward now, faithful one, with everything you have heard settled into you as deeply as it can be settled, not carried in your hands as something you have to maintain and protect, but held in your center as something that holds you. The love that is arriving, let it hold you. The provision that is coming, let it hold you. The blessing that has your name on it, let it hold you. You do not have to manufacture what I am bringing to you. You only have to be present and open when it arrives. You are fully loved. You are completely known. You are deeply held. Every word spoken over your life by a God who cannot lie stands firm and is being brought to pass right now, in this moment, and in the moments ahead of you. Nothing that has happened has canceled the promise. Nothing that will happen can cancel it. Walk forward in that confidence and watch as the abundance arrives exactly where it was promised, in exactly the form that is needed, at exactly the time that is right. Let me return one more time to the subject of your home, because I want to speak over it with full specificity before we close, and because I believe that the space where you live and move and rest is one of the most important things I can bless for you right now. A home is more than walls and a roof. A home is a world. It is the particular world that surrounds you most intimately, that shapes the baseline of your experience, that either nourishes or drains the energy you bring to everything else in your life. When home is burdened, when the atmosphere is heavy, when the relationships are strained, when the resources are insufficient, when the quality of rest that happens there is poor, everything else in your life feels harder. Because you are drawing on a reserve that is not being replenished, you go out from a depleted place and return to a place that depletes further. And the cycle accumulates over time into a kind of chronic exhaustion that affects not just your body, but your hope, your perception, your capacity to believe that things can be different. What I am doing in your home is breaking that cycle, not gradually or partially or in some dimensions while leaving others untouched, fully. What has been burdening your home is losing its grip on it. What has been draining the atmosphere of the space is being displaced by what I am bringing in. What has been making the home a place of depletion rather than replenishment is changing, beginning now, in ways that you will feel before you can measure. A home that carries my presence is a home where people recover, where the body that is tired can actually rest, rather than simply lying down and continuing to run the same anxious patterns it was running upright, where the mind that is overwhelmed can actually quiet rather than simply changing location while the noise continues internally, where the heart that is wounded can begin, slowly and tentatively at first, and then with increasing confidence, to trust that it is safe, where the spirit that has been depleted can draw again from a source that does not run dry, because the source living in the home is the God whose resources have never been exhausted and whose supply has never run short. That is what I am releasing into your home. Recovery. Real recovery. The kind that changes the baseline. The kind that means you go out from your home with more than you had when you came in, not less. The kind that makes home the word it was always meant to be. A place of genuine belonging, genuine safety, genuine rest, genuine nourishment for every dimension of the person who inhabits it. Now, one final and specific word about what is coming in the days immediately ahead, because I want you to have something concrete to watch for, something specific enough that when it arrives, you will recognize it as the beginning of what I have been speaking over your life in this message. Watch for an opening. It will come in a form you were not necessarily expecting and through a channel you were not monitoring. It will be an opening, a door, a conversation, an opportunity, a connection, a circumstance that shifts, that creates space for something you have been needing that has not had room to arrive until now. When you see it, do not second-guess it. Do not analyze it until the moment passes. Do not defer your response out of the fear that it might not be as good as it appears. It is good. It has been prepared. Walk through it with the confidence of a person whose father arranged it specifically for them and who knows the father's character well enough to trust the arrangement. Watch for a word of affirmation. It will come from a direction that surprises you, from someone you did not expect to say what they say, in a moment you were not anticipating, about something that reaches past the surface of your life and touches a deeper level of your identity, or your worth, or the specific gift you carry. When it comes, receive it fully. Do not deflect it. Do not minimize it. Do not explain to the person why they are probably mistaken. Let it in. Let it be true. Because I arranged for it to reach you, and deflecting what I arranged to reach you is declining a gift I specifically chose. Watch for a provision in an unexpected form, something that you needed but had not yet asked for, that arrives before you could have arranged it, that addresses a specific gap in your life in a way that is too precisely fitted to be coincidence. When it arrives, take a moment before moving on to the logistics of receiving it to acknowledge where it came from. Because gratitude expressed in the moment of receipt keeps the channel of provision open. It signals to your own heart that the provision is real and personal and connected to a relationship, not just a random occurrence of favorable circumstances. Gratitude aimed at me in the moment of receiving something I sent is one of the most powerful practices available to a person who wants to live in a sustained experience of abundance. Practice it in the moments ahead when the provision arrives. My love for you is the most certain thing in the universe, not a quality I possess alongside other qualities that could potentially outweigh it, not a decision I made that I could unmake if circumstances changed. Love is what I am, at the center, at the core, in the substance of my being. Love. And love aimed at you is love that never runs low, never grows tired, never becomes frustrated with its object, never withdraws in disappointment, never looks at what you have failed at and decides the loving was a mistake. It simply continues, pouring, reaching, arriving, day after day after day, in every form that love can take, finding every channel through which love can flow, filling every space that can be filled, and creating new spaces to fill when the existing ones are full. You are the recipient of that love, not partially, completely, not with conditions, without conditions, not until you fail sufficiently, without end. Receive it. Let it change what you believe about yourself. Let it change what you expect from the future. Let it change the posture with which you approach each new day. Not braced against what might go wrong, but open to what is being given. Because what is being given is enormous and real, and it has your name on it, and it is arriving now. Let me speak over you one final blessing before we close this time together. Not a formal religious pronouncement delivered from a distance, but a specific, personal, intentional declaration over your life from the Father who knows every detail of it and who speaks with authority over every dimension of it. Over your mind, clarity. Where confusion has been clouding your thinking, clarity is arriving. Where anxiety has been distorting your perception of reality, peace is displacing it. Where discouragement has been coloring your interpretation of circumstances, hope is restoring the accurate colors. Your mind belongs to me, and I am releasing into it the specific quality of thinking that I designed it for. Clear, grounded, creative, compassionate, capable of holding complexity without being overwhelmed, capable of rest when rest is what is needed. Over your body, strength and restoration. Where weariness has accumulated, renewal is coming. Where pain has settled, healing is moving. Where the physical system has been taxed by sustained stress, recovery is beginning. Your body is the temple of the Spirit who lives in you, and I take seriously the care of what I inhabit. Expect to feel the difference. Expect the return of energy that the season of difficulty drained. Expect to wake in the mornings ahead with more in the tank than you have been waking with. Expect healing to continue and deepen in the specific places it has been working, and to begin in the specific places it has not yet reached. Over your spirit, fullness. Where the long season of difficulty has drained your reserves and left your inner life feeling thin and depleted, fullness is coming. A replenishment that goes deeper than the exhausted places and fills them not with willpower or discipline, but with the actual presence of the Spirit, who is the source of all life. Your spirit was designed to be full, not straining after what it needs, but resting in what is abundantly available. That fullness is being restored. Over your future, hope that is not wishful thinking, but confident expectation grounded in the character of the one who holds your future in hands that have never dropped anything they were given to hold. Your future is held. It is prepared. It is being brought to pass with the same faithfulness that brought every previous promise to pass, and every previous provision to arrive, and every previous moment of darkness to yield to a dawn. What is ahead of you is better than what is behind you, not despite what you have been through, but partly because of it. Because the person walking toward the future has been shaped by the journey in ways that make them ready to receive and inhabit and steward what the future holds. You are ready. Walk toward it. And one last word, because I want you to carry this with you specifically. Do not measure my love for you against the difficulty of the season you are leaving. Some people look at a hard chapter and conclude that a God who loved them would not have allowed it. But the hardest chapters of the stories I have written have always produced the most beautiful people. Not beautiful in the surface sense, but beautiful in the sense that matters. The kind of depth and compassion and groundedness and genuine love for others that can only be carved out by difficulty. The way a sculptor carves depth into stone, not by adding material, but by removing it. What was removed in you during this season was not anything you needed. It was what was in the way of the person you were always meant to be, and the person who remains after the removing is more beautiful, more capable, more ready, more genuinely themselves than the person who entered the season. I do not apologize for using the hard chapter. I do celebrate what it produced in you. And now I release you into the abundance that the carved out, deepened, more capable version of you is ready to inhabit. Love is arriving at your home. Provision is arriving. Blessing is arriving. And you, faithful one, you are arriving at yourself, the fullest version of yourself, the version I always saw when I looked at you. Welcome home. Carry this with you into every ordinary moment of the days ahead. When the morning comes and the familiar pressures return, and the habit of bracing wants to reassert itself, come back to this. Love is arriving. Provision is on the way. Blessing has your name. When someone in your household is struggling and the weight of holding things together feels too heavy, come back to this. I am here. My presence occupies this home. My grace is sufficient for everything this family faces. When doubt whispers that what was spoken over your life was beautiful, but probably not real, come back to this. The one who spoke it cannot lie, does not forget, never abandons what he began, and is actively bringing to pass in your specific life every specific word he spoke over it. Come back to this, again and again, not because you lack faith, but because repetition is how truth becomes settled knowing. How knowing becomes the ground you stand on rather than the thought you occasionally visit. Return to what is true until true becomes the baseline of your experience. Every promise stands. Every word holds. Every blessing is arriving. You are held, loved, seen, and deeply known by the one who made you and who is bringing you home. One more thing, and then I will let you go. In the moments when you do not feel any of what has been spoken here, when the feelings have not caught up to the truth, and the truth is sitting in your mind like a statement you believe intellectually but cannot feel, stay anyway. Feelings follow truth when truth is held long enough. Keep the truth. Keep returning to it. Keep speaking it, even when it does not feel real to speak it. Because feeling is not the measure of reality in my kingdom. Truth is the measure. And truth that is held and returned to and spoken and chosen repeatedly will eventually saturate all the way down to the level where you feel it as fully as you know it. Hold on. Stay with it. Let the truth do its work in you at the pace that truth works, which is sometimes slower than the feelings, but always deeper and always more lasting. You are loved, completely, always, without end. Amen. If this message found you in a place you did not expect to be found, please share it with someone whose face just came to your mind. Someone who is still in the hard chapter. Someone who needs to hear that the love is arriving, that the provision is on the way, that the blessing has their name and their exact address. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what God wants to speak into your life. The world needs more voices carrying this kind of hope, and your simple act of sharing can be the reason someone else finds exactly the message they needed at exactly the moment they needed it most.